The face of history often bears a crown, yet beneath the sparkle of its gems is a domain of breathtaking secrets, a place where monarchs were deceived, queens shattered convention, and entire bloodlines were forged and broken on the quietest rumors of treachery. Put aside the storybooks. These are the authentic accounts of royal marriages without passion, of power hanging by a thread, and of successors whose paternal lineage was far from certain. From the private rooms of Spanish fortresses to the opera houses of Sweden and the revolution-torn avenues of France, today we draw aside the silken veil on some of the most staggering royal controversies you may not know, but will struggle to forget. Our journey starts in 15th-century Castile, home to King Enrique the Fourth. Tall, fair-haired, blue-eyed, and saddled with the grim moniker, the Impotent. He was wed to two different princesses, both of whom stayed conspicuously childless. His initial spouse, Blanca of Navarre, remained a virgin for more than 10 years. The court, in its infinite helpfulness, even stationed clerks by the royal bedroom to document the union's consummation. Their quills remained clean. Enrique cited witchcraft as the cause of his problem and had the marriage annulled. However, it was his second wife, the captivating Juana of Portugal, who would truly shake the kingdom's foundations. Employing a mixture of bull's testicles and porcupine quills designed to ignite passion, Enrique attempted to overcome his limitations. Yet, even with the aid of a progressive Jewish doctor and a novel procedure akin to early artificial insemination, the outcome was dubious. Juana delivered a daughter who bore a striking resemblance to the queen's charming courtier, Beltrán de la Cueva. Court gossip quickly nicknamed the child La Beltraneja. When Juana later delivered two more sons fathered by a bishop's nephew, the controversy erupted. A rebellion broke out, the monarchy faltered, and ultimately it was Enrique's powerful half-sister Isabella who would seize control of Castile. She would later unite Spain with Ferdinand of Aragon, paving the way for a worldwide empire. Let's shift our focus to 15th-century England, an era where kingdoms were won by both blade and clandestine affairs. The year is 1442. In Rouen, Normandy, Cecily Neville, the Duchess of York, brought a son named Edward into the world. Decades on, he would ascend to become King Edward the Fourth, the patriarch of the Yorkist line. Yet, a cloud of doubt still lingers over his birth, a query that unsettled the very bedrock of the English throne. Cecily was a commanding figure, referred to by courtiers as Proud Cis. Her husband, Richard, Duke of York, was nowhere near her when Edward was conceived. He was engaged in the 100 Years' War in France. This troubling chronology fueled centuries of speculation. If Richard was absent, who was the father? Rumors began to grow and entwine themselves around the court. Had Cecily sought solace in the embrace of a simple archer? Was the future king the offspring of a man without noble blood? Physically, Edward's appearance didn't help. While Richard and Cecily's other offspring were short and dark, Edward stood exceptionally tall, over 6 feet, with fair hair, a radiant anomaly. To many, he resembled a Norse deity more than a York. And though he would seize the throne not through birthright but by force, the rumor of his illegitimacy clung to him. Edward's own brother, George, Duke of Clarence, eventually betrayed him, accusing him of being a bastard in an attempt to claim the crown for himself. The penalty for such treason was a traitor's execution. George met a legendary end, drowned in a cask of Momsey wine, a fittingly dramatic fate. But the most significant turn occurred following Edward's death. His two young heirs, Edward V and Richard of Shrewsbury, known to history as the Princes in the Tower, vanished while under the care of their uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester. Richard promptly pronounced the boys illegitimate and seized the crown, becoming Richard III. This disloyal deed cleared a path for a new challenger, Henry Tudor, a far-off relative with a tenuous claim but a sharp sword. He vanquished Richard at the Battle of Bosworth, married Edward IV's daughter, Elizabeth of York, and established the Tudor dynasty. But consider this twist. If Edward IV lacked royal blood, what does that imply for the Tudors, the Stuarts, and even the Windsors? The entire lineage that gave us Henry VIII, Elizabeth I, And every sovereign down to Charles III might have originated from a royal deception, a narrative crafted by history's greatest storytellers. Now, let us venture north to the frigid landscape of 18th-century Sweden, where royal controversy adopted a much icier demeanor. Literally, Crown Prince Gustav III was a man with a flair for the dramatic, devoted to theater, fashion, and the arts. His wife, Sophia Magdalena of Denmark, was his complete opposite, pious, shy, and brought up with a rigid Lutheran ethos. From the outset, their union was icy. After 3 years, rumors spread uncontrollably. The royal marriage had never been physically realized, and Sophia, still a virgin, was the subject of whispers. Even foreign courts mocked the situation. A Danish courtier remarked that she was as content as any woman could be after 3 years of marriage while still a virgin. Gustav, it was whispered, preferred the companionship of men to that of his own wife. But the pressure grew. Sweden required a successor. A revolution threatened. A childless king was weak, a fact Gustav understood well. In a decision that appears almost farcical now, he sought help from his confidant, Count Adolf Frederick Monk, not merely for guidance but for direct involvement. Depending on which account you trust, Monk either instructed the royal pair from behind a screen or took a hands-on role to ensure the union was complete. 9 months on, a son was born. Prince Gustav Adolf's arrival was a relief to the kingdom. However, courtiers observed the boy's uncanny resemblance to Count Monk. The queen even gave him a diamond ring, and the king promoted him rapidly. Highly suspicious. Years later, that very son, King Gustav IV Adolf, would lose Finland in a calamitous war against Russia. The populace was incensed. The royal house, once esteemed and stable, was overthrown. The Swedes, weary of royal ambiguity, discreetly installed a new dynasty. Enter Jean-Baptiste Bernadotte, a French general selected from Napoleon's close circle. He was crowned Karl XIV Johann, initiating an entirely new royal lineage. The Bernadottes occupy the Swedish throne to this day, descended not from ancient Viking monarchs but from a French revolutionary soldier. And finally to France, a nation of upheaval and renewal, where one name eclipses all: Napoleon. But imagine if the final great Bonaparte was not a Bonaparte at all. Napoleon Bonaparte orchestrated a political union between his stepdaughter, Hortense de Beauharnais, and his less charismatic younger brother, Louis. The emperor aimed to forge a new generation of little Bonapartes, shaped in his own likeness. But Hortense had her own plans. While she fulfilled her regal obligation, her heart and her passions lay elsewhere. Her fervent romance with the handsome Charles de Flohout caused a stir. Speculation mounted that her children, particularly the charismatic Louis Napoleon, might not have been fathered by her spouse. When the empire fell, Hortense resided in opulence in Switzerland as her Bonaparte sons were raised in exile. The bloodline appeared to be severed until France, once again in political turmoil in 1848, looked back to the Napoleon legend. The public chose Louis Napoleon, the emperor's nephew, as their president. He didn't end his ascent there. He executed a coup, discarded the constitution, and declared himself Emperor Napoleon III. His rule was extensive, transformative, and marked by splendor, but it concluded in catastrophe. Vanquished by Prussia, taken prisoner on the battlefield, and forced into exile, his demise was the last chapter in France's imperial aspirations. As for Louis Napoleon's own lineage, it may have been Bonaparte by name, but not by blood. What common, delicate cord connects these narratives? English conflicts, Swedish rumors, French romances, all are tied to the same concept: the right to rule. In palaces and castles, in bedrooms and on battlefields, the question of paternity became an issue not just of rumor, but of statecraft, conflict, and the very identity of nations. Edward IV could have been an archer's son. Gustav IV Adolf may have gained his crown through a courtier's instruction. Napoleon III might have been the product of a clandestine love affair. But this is the one truth no royal line will ever concede. Sometimes the throne isn't claimed by the legitimate successor. It is taken by the one who projects the image of power. the one possessing the determination, the military might, or the narrative that sways a nation. Ultimately, the right to rule is a story we accept as truth. And in the realm of monarchs, that story is frequently more bizarre than any fiction.